man's recovering in hospital tonight after being stabbed outside of a row of shops in Chelmsford. The 35-year-old local man was attacked at the Trent Road shops just before 1 o'clock this morning. Officers have spent the day carrying out house-to-house inquiries. A 27-year-old has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder.
A rail worker fixing overhead power lines in Essex died after a basket sheared off a hoist and fell onto the track. An inquest is heard. 3 men were working in a hydraulic hoist at Margaretting back in June 2008. Malcolm Slater from Essex suffered spinal injuries and later died in hospital. Today, a coroner in Chelmsford heard how Network Rail made a series of improvements to the lifting machinery following the accident. The hearing continues.
Union members across our region took to the streets today to oppose the planned cuts in the public sector funding by the government. Workers gathered outside of the County Hall in Chelmsford as well as in Norwich and Kings Lynn, holding protests as part of a European Trade Union Day of Action. Unions say harsh cuts would devastate families, communities and local businesses.
We were here in the morning handing out leaflets and trying to get people to sign what amounts to a petition against the cutbacks. And we have had quite a lot of support because everyone's worried about their jobs. I mean, no one really understands why they need to lose their jobs because bankers have gone completely out of control.
One of our region's iconic lighthouses has gone on sale after a lengthy restoration.
The Lighthouse at Sutton Bridge in South Lincolnshire was home to the renowned artist and conservationist Sir Peter Scott and has been restored in memory of him. Serena Sandhu has this report.
Standing proud among the cornfields, the East Lighthouse was built in 1826 to guide shipping to the ports of Wisbech and Sutton Bridge. The lighthouse occupies an isolated and secluded spot on the east bank of the River Nene. It stands at 55 feet in height and can be seen by shipping from 20 miles away. It was the home of artist and conservationist Sir Peter Scott from 1933 to 1939. And it's said he thought up his ideas of conservation while living here.
Originally, I was attracted not only by the wildfowl, but by the sense of space and isolation, especially in winter.
Scott built an extension as his studio where he painted some 300 pictures, some of which still hang from its walls. A lasting legacy, Scott etched 12 mallards into what had been the outside wall of the lighthouse, with the words November 1937 and his signature. Commander David Joel bought the derelict lighthouse in 1984 and spent £250,000 refurbishing it in Scott's honour. It's now on the market for £435,000.
Totally quiet, there's no traffic, only the farm traffic goes by. And it's remote and it's romantic and it has most wonderful views.
David still keeps the lamp burning. Surrounded by its own mini nature reserve, the East Lighthouse is a monument to a man, a landscape and a way of life. Serena Sandhu, Anglia News, Sutton Bridge.
A Suffolk police constable is preparing for his biggest challenge yet by competing in one of the longest races in the world.
Simon Bourne has just 2 months before this year's Ultraman World Championships in Hawaii. As a sports ambassador for Bury St Edmunds, he's been doing much of his training at a local leisure centre. Laura Burns went along to meet him.
Training casually on the treadmill, Simon Bourne doesn't particularly stand out. But here at Abbeycroft Leisure Centre, they know he's got something special. Whether he's running, swimming or cycling, this has become his second home as he prepares for the Ultraman World Championships in Hawaii.
So I've come up through the triathlon distances from half Ironman to the full Ironman distance in preparation, had a look at that and then realised pretty much there's more in the fuel tank. So I went to Ultraman Canada. Now it's just a case of completing them at maximum speed.
The gruelling event takes place over 3 days. He begins by swimming 6.2 miles. That's the equivalent of about 400 lengths in a swimming pool. After that, he'll cycle 260 miles. That's the same as cycling all the way from Bury St Edmunds to Snowdonia. And after that, it's a double marathon, running 52.4 miles, which is the same as running from Bury to Great Yarmouth. He fits in all his training around his full-time job as a police officer. Not being the largest of men, does it ever come in handy?
Yeah, I've used it on a few occasions. Sometimes you'll get people who run away from you. but I like a good run and I like a chase.
For Simon, the hardest part of the triathlon is the swimming.
There's the danger of something going wrong. There's also the elements, and there's nobody to talk to, so you are basically self-motivated in the water.
Whatever happens, he says he's proud of what he's achieved, but hopes to at least break the record for Britain. Laura Burns, Anglia News, Bury St Edmunds.
Well, staying with the ultra-fit, Norwich cyclist Emma Pooley has won gold at the World Road Cycling Championships in Australia. Pooley, who won Olympic silver in Beijing 2 years ago, clinched the women's time trial in Geelong overnight. She also became the first British woman to win a medal in the event's history. Well, the news is not so good, though, for Alex Dowsett of Essex. He suffered a puncture and he finished in 31st place.
Football now, and Peterborough's League One game with Notts County will be investigated by the Football Association after fighting broke out between both sets of players.
Donovan Blake starts our look back at last night's league programme with the events at London Road.
All quiet outside Peterborough's London Road ground today, but at full time inside the stadium last night, it was anything but. Players and coaches from Peterborough and Notts County embroiled in a mass brawl. Posh has just lost 3-2 in what turned out to be a bad-tempered affair. Referee Andy Woolmer, who also sent off Peterborough skipper Grant McCann and Notts County's Ricky Ravenhill just before the end, will now send a report to the FA. Meanwhile, Peterborough have already started their own investigation.
Following the unacceptable behaviour that developed at the end of last night's game against Notts County, the football club has launched a full-scale inquiry to allow the facts to be presented. The football club does not condone such behaviour and has been happy to supply the FA, the Football League and the police with evidence to support this stance.
Posh had trailed 3-1 at half-time, having conceded twice just before the break. And although Craig McHale-Smith halved the arrears in the second half, the defeat leaves them 5th in League One. They're a point ahead of Colchester, who've equalled a 49-year record for their longest unbeaten start to a season. 9 games now after drawing with Dagenham and Redbridge.
You know, if we've done something people haven't done for a long time or never done before, then I think that just, makes this team that little bit special.
The Dons are now halfway after losing at Charlton. To the Championship, and after their weekend defeat, an immediate response from Norwich with a dramatic 4-3 win over Leicester to go third. Among their scorers, a certain Adam Drury, a long-serving fullback's first goal for more than 5.5 years. Of course, defending is Drury's main role for Norwich, but it's worth noting that he's made 172 appearances since scoring in the 4-4 draw with Middlesbrough back in January 2005, when Norwich were in the Premier League. City have also played more than 250 games in that time and scored 340 goals in the process. Safe to say last night's goal was a footballing rarity. Not so good for Ipswich. They were beaten by a late goal at Reading and had Luke Hyam sent off. A clear sign that Stevenage are finding their feet in League Two. Back-to-back away wins with the 4-1 thrashing of Hereford, their biggest victory since joining the league. Southend earned a draw at Gillingham, and after their recent highs, a low for Northampton, beaten by Chesterfield. But it's the events at London Road which overshadow last night's results. The FA could make a decision by Friday. Donovan Blake, Anglia News.
Now.